Good evening and welcome to Story Hour. And happy summer solstice to you. Daniel Marcus, my wonderful co-host, started Story Hour over 2 years ago. And over that time, we've gotten to be here for a lot of ordinary Wednesdays and a few holidays and turned some ordinary Wednesdays into holidays. And it's all been wonderful for us. And we hope for you. We'd like to welcome back two of the people who have made Story Hour wonderful in the past. Maria Haskins and Steve Toase. As always, our writers are reading for their favorite nonprofits. And tonight's nonprofits, which we'd like you to consider sending something to or volunteering for if you have the time and resources and inclination, are SASH and Greyhaven Exotic Bird Sanctuary. Steve Toase is reading for SASH. SASH is a registered charity preventing homelessness in young people aged 16 to 25 throughout North and East Yorkshire. When young people are facing homelessness, SASH can offer a spare room in the home of a trained volunteer overnight, for a few days or longer, and support to move forward. Last year, SASH provided 1,143 nights of safe accommodation for young people who had nowhere else to go. You can learn more at sash-uk.org.uk. Sounds like a really amazing cause. You know how quickly things can go bad for young people. So it really sounds like a great thing. Maria Haskins is reading for a personal favorite of hers, Greyhaven Exotic Bird Sanctuary. Greyhaven Exotic Bird Sanctuary is a nonprofit society whose purpose is to provide rescue and protection for parrots. Some of you may know that Maria has some beautiful parrots and posts pictures of them from time to time on social media. Through its adoption program, Greyhaven strives to place parrots in new, loving homes. Greyhaven provides education and support to parrot guardians and the general public. Greyhaven opposes the breeding and selling of parrots through pet stores, bird marts, or via the internet. You can learn more at greyhavenbirds.com. If you're here on Zoom, feel free to leave your camera on. It can be nice for our readers to see your sweet faces, appalled faces, whatever the stories are doing for you. And chime in on the text chat on the right if you like. If you're joining us on Facebook, thank you, but please understand that we may not be seeing your messages right away. And our first reader tonight is Steve Toase. Steve Toase is originally from Yorkshire and now lives in Munich. He writes regularly for Fortean Times, and his short stories have been published in Weird Horror, Nightmare Magazine, Shadows and Tall Trees. That's Shadows and Tall Trees 8. Lots of Shadows and Tall Trees. Analog Science and Fact. Fiction, analog science and fact. They don't call it analog science fiction and fact. Did I get that wrong? Three-Lobed Burning Eye, Shimmer, thank you for still saying that, and Lackingtons, R.I.P. Lackingtons, among others. His stories have also been reprinted in Ellen Datlow's Best Horror of the Year series. His short story collection, To Drown in Dark Water, has been published by Undertow Publications. Steve, welcome.
Thank you. So, tonight I'm going to be reading a story called Verwelktag, which was first published in Lackingtons, but is in my collection. It is a horror story. There is some gore. There are a lot of flowers, and there's a little bit of German. So, I shall start if that's okay. Blumen, Blumen, selbst fluchen, kommt mit mir nach Hause. Du bist süß und sehr, sehr schön, drinnen oder draußen. Eine ist weiß, eine ist gelb, einige begann sich zu roten. Ob im Boden, auf dem Tisch, immer für die Toten. Competing honeysuckle and magnolia wafted in from the castle grounds as Angela opened the small apartment's windows. Don't they smell beautiful? Joe didn't look up from his laptop, attention held by cascading columns of figures. The flowers in the gardens. Don't they smell beautiful? He put the laptop on the rented sofa. Angela stood aside, resting against the thick, cool walls. Joe leaned out of the casement. Do you think they'll mind if I pick some to brighten up this place? Angela asked, putting her hand on his. As long as you don't go overboard, don't strip out every last bloom, I'm sure they'll be fine. She knelt on the grass, leaning into the border with a pair of scissors as a substitute for the secateurs she didn't own. Beside her a pile of already cut hyacinths and marigolds. Entschuldigung, bitte, das ist leider nicht Ordnung. Diese Blumen dürfen Sie nicht pflücken. Angela turned, noticed the grass stains on her skin and tried to see the person speaking to her. The sun was behind them and their face hidden. Es tut mir leid, mein Deutsch ist nicht so good, she said, unable to hide her English accent in her rehearsed German. Sie sprechen English? The figure said. Angela stood. It was a gardener she'd seen maintaining the grounds over the past couple of weeks. He rested on his leaf rake as if he had trouble standing. Ja, English, she said. Angela Bay, we've only just moved in, the corner apartment on the second floor of the castle. He nodded and looked down at the pile of flowers by her feet. Residents are not allowed to cut flowers from these gardens. Sorry, she held out her hand and he ignored it. I didn't think you'd miss a handful. And if everyone did that, then replenish their vases when the flowers died, how many would be left? I said I was sorry. On the outskirts of the town there are patches of selbst pflücken Blumen. Pick them yourself flowers. There is a small charge, but you must get them from there, not damage these plants. Angela nodded and glanced up toward her apartment. The window was shut, Joe out of sight. I will do in future. The gardener pointed at the severed plants. Sliced from their soil-bound roots, the flowers were already wilting to sepia in the sun. Those will have to stay. I understand, and I'm sorry. Please don't do it again, Frau Bay. I won't. She tucked the scissors into her back pocket and, hands empty, walked toward the vast gates leading to the town beyond. The flower patch wasn't hard to find, an eruption of colour on the edge of a rattling maize field. By the roadside stood a concrete-filled barrel with a small coin box. A neon-handled kitchen knife hung from a piece of green nylon string. The flowers were arranged by type. Dahlias to the left of the field, sunflowers rising in the centre, and gladioli on the right-hand side. Tucking her trouser cuffs into her socks, Angela walked down a plough furrow into the midst of the flowers, stumbling on uncleared stones in the soil. The scents pulled her in, dragging her from one stalk to the next, blue and purple petals stained with yellow, reds more vivid than any forest fire. She ran them through her fingers, feeling their velvet skin and the slight bulge of veins under the surface. Sunflower heads drooped as if embarrassed to be so tall, stalks like shark skin, then dahlias, globes of dead planets reborn in nested florets. She cupped one after another in her hands, let them settle in her palms, lowered her face and allowed the fragrance to rise into her. Lost to herself, she wandered from row to row to row, deeper into the centre, far from the road, to the middle of a small field. She spotted something tight to the worn dirt, and her breath caught in her throat. Sunflower reflected off the metal staples holding the limbs in place, fur flayed back to show yellowed bones. The chest cavity was empty of organs, instead stuffed with petals and seed heads. Angela stepped back, losing her footing on the loose soil. The skull had been separated from the body and placed a few feet away, delicate bottom jaw still in place. She had no way to tell what the animal had been. In between the picked clean head and the body grew 3 rows of the most beautiful flowers she had ever seen, each stalk inclined to the floor with the weight of blooms barely any open. Hints of colour, far more vibrant than those in the plough furrows around her. She only meant to pick 2 or 3. By the time she finished, Angela balanced over a dozen stalks in the crook of her arm. Why do you think the colours are so bright? The flowers lay on the table in front of her, spread out on old newspaper. 4 vases stood around the edge, the blades of her scissors to one side smeared in green. Nutrients from the body? What did you say it was again? Joe said, picking up one of the severed stems. Couldn't tell. Rabbit, maybe? Probably some kind of biodynamic farming thing, burying cow horns full of manure under the 3rd crescent moon and all that nonsense. He gathered up the other offcuts and dumped them in the bin. What do you know about biodynamic farming? Angela said. I read about it in a magazine once. On a plane, as far as possible from any fields and cow shit, he said, kissing her neck and carrying one of the vases over to the window. Brings a bit of colour to the place. In the grounds, the gardener was deheading espalier roses. Several flowers in full bloom fell into the soil. Instead of leaning down to pick them up, he ground the petals under his boot and turned to look back at the house. Angela shuddered. Walking back to the dining table, she folded the severed foliage into the newspaper and dumped it into the bin. Did you replace these? Sunlight shone through the vase's green water, several drowned flies trapped between the stems. Where the petals had started to curl the night before, they were now plump and fleshy again. Joe looked up from his suitcase, piles of clothes fanned out around him, shook his head. Did you top up the water, pour in some more plant food? He asked, compressing 2 jumpers into the suitcase. Angela replaced the vase on the windowsill, lining the base up with the circular water stain. I didn't feed them. The colours have changed too. I'm sure I put the reds and the blues together and the yellows and oranges over in the kitchen. Now they're all mixed. She watched Joe pick up 3 shirts, try to choose one and then stuff them all in. Maybe they change pigment as they age. Kneeling, she folded a suit jacket in half and passed it to him. Are you sure you're not playing a little prank on me before you go? Did you sneak out last night and pick up some fresh ones? Because that's the sort of thing I do the night before a conference. Go traipsing around the fields in the dark picking flowers. She handed him a stack of vests and waited while he found space for them. Well, you certainly weren't packing. Funny. Check my shoes. I didn't go out last night. It's not like there's anywhere to go around here. You do like it here, though, don't you? It is beautiful. He encased her hands in his. It is that. And I do get regular work trips away to civilized places with shops that open on Sundays and bars with more than one type of beer. How are you getting to the airport? Driving yourself? Taxi. Ernst? Are there any other taxis in town? Ernst it is then. She watched Ernst's pale grey Audi make its way down the castle drive. Joe's suitcase visible on the back seat. Alone, she looked again at the flowers. Several petals had already fallen. She picked one up and held it between 2 fingers, squeezing the silken flesh until it smeared her fingertips with colour. She brushed the remains into her hand, dumped them into the bin, and went to bed alone. Saturday morning and the small town centre was full, everyone trying to get their shopping before midday closing. Angela let the tide of people carry her through the square, past the small shrine to a saint whose name she never remembered. Small bouquets tied with red ribbons were stacked against the statue's marble feet. She went into each shop, coming out to find herself beside the statue once more, the flowers still stacked up. Are those normally there? She said to the baker, filling her shopping bag with fresh Spritzen and semmel. The flowers? They're for tomorrow. At home, Angela unpacked and sat down at the table, sipping her coffee, phone in front of her. She pressed her fingers against the screen and checked again for an SMS. Still nothing. Turning on Messenger, she brought up the thread she shared with Joe and stared at the last 3 unanswered messages. I know you get distracted by the bright lights of the city. A reply once in a while would be nice. Throwing the phone out of reach, she stared out of the window. In the grounds, the gardener was burning a pile of waste branches and leaves. Smoke drifted back toward the building. Half-scorched leaves glittered in the fumes. She closed the windows. The smell of ash still found its way inside, around the old wooden window frames. Church bells rattled her awake. Putting on her dressing gown, she watched the other residents parade from the castle's main entrance down to the gate. Most wore their Sunday best, children holding gloved hands. The gardener waited by a vat of hot liquid atop a worn wooden table. He handed each new person a glass, and Angela watched each one take a sip, faces obscured by steam. She closed the curtains and got dressed. Each door on her floor held a different coloured rose, broken stem laced into the lock. She turned to look back at her own apartment. The flower was pale yellow, already wilted. She pulled it free and forced it into her pocket. Angela took the cup, the decoration of gold-edged blooms glistening with the heated wine inside. She took a mouthful, trying to identify the herbs. "Feuer Verwelktag, Frau Bay," the gardener said, wiping his hands on his smock. "Verwelktag?" "Wilting Day. A time to remember that all things must rot into the soil so others can grow." She tried to join in, sipped the drink until the bitter flavour tainted her tongue, bought a bouquet from the children stood at the entrance to the marketplace, took photos of the traditional costumes, all lace and velvet and animal fur. The young girls wore white dresses and carried bunches of daisies tied together with parcel string. Garlands of fuchsias, foxgloves and asters hung between lampposts, low enough to brush pollen on the heads of those passing beneath. Dray horses with bridles decked in blooms the colour of the local brauerei dragged a barrel-stacked cart in endless circles, mouths foaming with the effort. Angela held her phone up to take a photo and attached it to a message for Joe. Show him what he was missing out on. When she saw there was still no reply, any enthusiasm left her. She threw her bouquet of already dying flowers into the bin. It landed on half-empty beer bottles, sending up a cloud of drunk wasps, and she set off back to her apartment. In the corridor, the mixture of summer fragrances and rotten vegetation was overpowering. She opened the door and the stench intensified. Angela walked the short distance to the bedroom and threw her coat on the chair back. The figure was barely visible in the gloom, curled up under the sheets as if in pain. She looked around for Joe's suitcase, gripping the collar of her coat. "Joe? Are you okay? I didn't think you were due back. You should have called ahead. I was in town." The bedside lamp pushed shadows against the walls but did not disperse them. "Are you ill? Do you want me to get you something?" She pulled the sheets back. The legs were shaped from twisted lengths of ivy, each leafed strand woven into the next. Where the chest should have been, hundreds of flowers had been placed on top of each other. Roses, lilies, pansies and foxgloves, all arranged into the form of a sleeping man. Lupins as knuckles, daisies as vertebrae. Where the head should be, a crush of the same flowers dying in vases around the apartment. "Joe, are you under there?" The last drop of hope left her as she tore through the dying flower heads to the sheets underneath. The mattress was sodden, stems already rooting themselves amongst the springs, searching for nutrients. She wrenched a handful free and flung them to the carpet. There was nothing but petals and seeds and stems. She tried to clear the bed, filling bin bag after bin bag with dead plants, stopping every few minutes to catch her breath. Instead, she sat on the floor and tried her phone again and again and again, until the battery ran out and she was alone with the stench of death. The singing woke her. Out of habit, she reached for her phone to check the time, but the battery had not charged itself while she slept. Standing, she looked out of the window. The townspeople stood around the perimeter wall. Each wore a mask of wilting blossoms. In their disguises, it was hard to recognize anyone, not that she knew her neighbors well enough. Children stood between their parents. Priests from the local church next to uniformed police and farmers. They did not move. In their hands were lanterns. Those held by adults were cylinders of light, the children shaped like ships, trains and horses. They swung them in low arcs, leaving trails in the dark. The flowers danced in the flames. One figure separated himself from the cordon and walked up the path. His flower mask was old and complex, layer upon layer of roses and gladioli woven in until the weight bent his neck toward the ground. He rested on a leaf rake, a large knife in his other hand. And while he walked, the others began to sing. She recognized some of the words from her basic German. Others were too heavy in dialect for her to make out, and all the time the gardener made his slow progress toward the castle. There was nowhere to go, only one door out of the apartment, and then what? Run through the crowd into the countryside. She listened to him climb the stairs, each step marked with the clatter of rake tines on stone, the knife scraping the wall as if he couldn't quite hold the blade's weight. He stopped outside the door and knocked, waited, knocked again. Frau Bay, bitte öffnen Sie die Tür. Please open the door. There is no way you can run. Looking out her window, Angela searched for a ledge to get as far from the old man as possible. Where was Joe? Why wasn't he here? All she could see outside was a ring of flames illuminating the floral masks. In the stillness, she recognized more of the song they were singing. Blumen, Blumen, selbst fluchen, kommt mit mir nach Hause. Du bist süß und sehr, sehr schön, drinnen oder draußen. Einer ist weiß, einer ist gelb, einige begann sich zu roten. Ob im Boden, auf dem Tisch, immer für die Toten. A key slid into her lock and turned. The door opened toward her, letting light into the living room. The gardener blocked the way. He panted from the effort of climbing the stairs. Frau Bay, bitte, there really isn't anywhere to go. Angela ran. She was taller than the old man and he fell easily, the rake wedging itself against the wall so he couldn't turn. In the hallway, she hit the light switch and ran toward the staircase. There was no one else in the castle. Every other apartment was silent. She took the stairs two at a time, hesitating in the hallway. One door led to the drive, straight into the waiting arms of the singers. Behind her was another, small and wooden, that led into the courtyard and beyond to the service part of the complex. She opened the latch and ran. The paths were overgrown, strawberry runners creeping over the gravel. Brambles and rose bushes erupted from the beds. Ignoring the scratches, she ran toward the old glass houses at the far end of the grounds. Her plan wasn't complicated. Through the nurseries, over the wall. The door hung loose on its hinges. She pulled it toward her and dried putty fell onto her arm. Inside, the air was heavy with the sweet scent of compost. On either side of her, wooden tables held soil and bedding plants. Seedlings not mature enough to endure the cold outside. Spindly tomato plants knotted around thin canes. She looked back at her footsteps in the dirt, then forward to make sure no one was cutting off her escape. The scream was out of her mouth before she could quiet herself. Joe's body lay in one of the vast seedling trays, naked, arms and legs held down with metal brackets. His face was intact, eyes open, torso split from neck to groin, organs emptied out and the space filled with rich, dark topsoil. Skin blackened with rot around the broken tips of his ribs. In the cavity that once held his heart and lungs, seedlings now grew. She pictured the gardener mulching down Joe's liver for plant food, crushing bones as meal to sprinkle in the beds. Reaching out, she touched the tips of his fingers, feeling where roots thin as worms prized apart his skin, remembering for a moment the last time when his hand held hers. Behind her, the door opened. The gardener stood with his knife hanging toward one side. Please don't free Frau Bay. Bitte. I'm getting old and getting tired these days. Joe's fingers tightened around hers. Go, Angela, just go. She shook, wanting to scream all of the air in her lungs. Give it to her husband, stitch him back together and repair him, scoop out the dirt with her bare hands and hold him until he fainted. Instead, she ran. The back of a glass house was mildewed, and she soon kicked through the wooden panels, glass shattering into foot-long splinters. Behind the building, a forgotten pile of rotten kitchen waste rose against the boundary wall. She climbed up, ignoring insects skittering over her legs. Straddling the wall, she checked the drop and lowered herself into the woodland beyond. She heard the townspeople singing. Too many people. She ran deeper, amongst the trees, away from the lights, away from the singing voices. On the other side of the wall, she heard the gardener following her route. Sie flieht. Sie ist zu schnell. Ich kann nicht verfolgen. Durch den Wald. Angela allowed herself a moment of relief, ducked into the undergrowth, away from her pursuers. Couldn't remember where she would come out. As long as she kept heading away from the castle, from her home, she would be okay. Get to the next village. She would be okay. She would be okay. She spotted them by their lanterns, a line of lights drifting through the dark, sweeping up the hill. She watched them getting closer, knew they would be around the wood in moments. The far side was still clear. She took off her coat, threw it to one side, ran through the shrubs, kept low. The woodland ended at a ditch. She scrambled through, grass and mud against her skin, reminded her of Joe's broken hand. Her fingers grasped. She emptied her stomach into the brambles, ran for cover, knelt down. The sunflowers loomed over her. Behind them, the rows of gladioli and dahlias. She tried to see a way out. The townspeople just stood, all along the edge of the flower patch. Lanterns held still. They were not singing now, just waiting. Angela did not move, stayed hidden in the flowers. Sunflower stalks rasped her skin. As one, their voices rose and they moved forward. Angela waited to see if they would stop again, but they did not, instead trampling the flowers into the dirt and stones. She waited until the last minute and ran deeper, not caring about the streaks of pollen on her clothes or scratches across her face. Nothing at all apart from getting as far away from the lanterns as possible. She pictured Joe holding on to life through some cruel trick of nature, waiting to say her name. She drew strength from it. Just before the middle of the flower patch, the ground rose slightly, crowned with 4 large rhododendron bushes, all the flowers removed. She stood beside them and looked out into the night. The lanterns were on all sides now, the petal massed shoulder to shoulder. There was no way to break through. Their voices rose again, not singing, raucous with joy. She stumbled down the far side of the hill, tripped over something embedded in the soil, cold, metal, the first of 4 tethers, each hammered into the furrows. She pulled herself up, scanned the villagers, tried to spot the children in the crowd, saw one, lowered her shoulder, ran forward, ready to break through. There was no impact. The child stepped to one side and something sharp slid across the back of her ankle. Angela fell face down in the dirt. Adult hands turned her over, held her in place as they wrapped her wrists in garlands and placed a crown of honeysuckle on her head. And slowly they put their lanterns aside and carried her back to where the tethers waited to hold her to the soil. Thank you.
Steve, that is such a wonderful story.
Thank you. Thank you. It's inspired by an actual place in Germany, Passenhofen, which is one of the old palaces down on a lake near Munich.
Oh, is it close to where you are then?
Yeah, it's about 30 minutes on the train, 30 minutes to an hour.
Okay, so you can't see it from your window
No.
now or anything?
No. Our nearest castle is Schloss Blutenberg, which is the International Youth Library and holds a children's library in a castle. So that's a pretty special place.
Okay, so if you saw lanterns from there, that would probably be a good thing.
Yes, it would.
Well, thank you for staying up through the night and into the wee hours of the morning to read us that on the solstice. That is it just boggles the mind.
Thank you for inviting me.
How could we not? Really? It is our custom between the stories to take a breath and ready for the next one. Our next reader is Maria Haskins. She has another story that has to do with this time of year, and it is no less harrowing, but I think we'll feel a little less terrified right at the end. Maria Haskins is a Swedish-Canadian writer and reviewer of speculative fiction. Her short story collection, Six Dreams About the Train and Other Stories, is out now from Trepidatio Publishing. I probably should have checked that. Ooh, please hold that up again when the camera's on you right before you start speaking, Maria. Maria's short fiction has appeared in the Best Horror of the Year, Volume 13. You two have some common Toase credits here. Black Static, Interzone, Fireside, Beneath Ceaseless Skies, Cast of Wonder, Shimmer, Flash Fiction Online, Gamut, Capricious, Kaleidotrope, Pseudopod, Elsewhere. Some pretty impressive Elsewheres, actually. Maria currently lives just outside Vancouver with a husband, 2 kids, several birds, a snake, and a very large black dog. Maria, welcome. Let's see. What? Oh, the pixies are getting grumpy again, and Maria is not able to unmute. So let me see if I can do that.
There we go. I think that's it.
Yes.
Yep.
Yes. Now the floor is yours.
Okay. So I'm reading my story, Hare's Breath, which was first published in Shimmer, and it's in my short story. Oh, it's so weird with that background. Well, there it goes.
Hold very, very still.
From my short story collection, Six Dreams About the Train. And my background is a picture from Sweden taken in June, not exactly for Midsummer's Eve, but when it was that, this is, the picture behind me is actually taken at midnight in Sweden. So that's a midnight picture in June in Sweden, many years ago, but still, I thought it was appropriate. So for this story, I'm going to actually first read the footnote of the story, which comes after it. And because it sort of shows the inspiration for why I wrote this story in the first place. So the footnote to the story is, the so-called sterilization laws were instituted by the Swedish Parliament in 1934 and 1941. Both allowed sterilization without consent under certain conditions. The reasons to perform sterilizations were threefold: eugenics, for race and genetic hygiene, social and medical. Of the total number of sterilized individuals, 93% were women. And those laws were in place officially till the 70s, but mostly used until the 60s. So from the 30s to the 60s. Anyways, that was the inspiration for the story. So now I'm going to read it. Hare's Breath. 1947, Västerbotten, Sweden. It's Midsummer's Eve, and even this close to midnight, there's no darkness, only a long translucent dusk that will eventually slip into dawn. Britt and I are 15, and she has just come back from that place, the one the adults won't talk about, even when they think I'm not listening. Something's happened to her there, but I don't understand what it is, and she can't find the words to tell me. We're sitting on the wooden fence near my family's potato patch, looking down the slope at the red painted barn and stable, watching the hare. The hare sits upright on his haunches by the forest's edge, ever watchful, bending now and then to nibble grass and clover, gray-brown fur all sleek and trim, long ears turning. The hare reminds me of Britt, dark eyes, watching to see if you've come to kill it, long legs, always ready to run. Shapes and shadows move in the gloom beneath the forest's dark-fringed spruce and pine, and Britt says it's the trolls that live there. restless in the long summer dusk, hiding themselves under rocks and roots and glossy lingonberry leaves. She says you can speak to them when the sun and moon have gone down. You can even speak to the hare then, if you know how, if he trusts you enough to let you. Most nights I might not have believed her, even though she goes farther into the woods than anyone else I know. But tonight is Midsummer's Eve, when the skein between tale and truth is thin enough to pass through. We've helped decorate the village maypole with birch leaves and flowers, such as there are up here so far north in June. It's cold. We wear woolen sweaters over summer dresses, bare legs swinging, and from far away I can hear music, or maybe it's just the river's distant voice. B minor, a song like whispers and sun on water. Brit taps her fingers to the melody, so I know she hears it too. In the silence between us, the notes seem to resonate within her, tugging at her, rippling through her, plucked on strings of guts and breath, pain and memory. I've picked 7 kinds of flowers to put under my pillow, picked them special, keeping silent all the while, climbing over 7 fences to do it right. I would dream about the man I'll marry if I slept on them, but I don't want to sleep, and I don't want to marry any man either. So instead, I braid them into a crown for Brit. She sits so still, looking at my fingers braiding. Purple wood cranesbill, white bishop's lace and oxeye daisies, red campion, yellow buttercups, blue forget-me-nots, and fragile harebells. Once it's done, she bows her head and I place it on her curly brown hair, a coronation. I see her change then, radiant like the pictures in Grandma's illustrated Bible, where the golden rays emanate from Jesus's head. You're the prettiest thing I ever saw, I say, straightening her crown and halo, and that makes her smile, even though sorrow peeks through the ragged edges of her joy. My older siblings all moved out and away before I even started school, and Brit has always been as close as a sister. Sometimes she's an older sister who tells me things not even the adults seem to know. Other times she can't understand things my 5-year-old cousin takes for granted. She is and always will be my ghost and shadow, my guilt and glory, my secret wish and hidden grief. Want to see? She asks, smile already slipping. Want to see what they did? I don't answer, but she takes her clothes off anyway, wool and dress, no linens underneath, and stands there naked except for the flowers left askew in her hair. Bruises run the length of her back, down her buttocks, the back of her thighs, swirls and stripes of blue and red and black, inflicted where her clothes are sure to hide them. But that is not what she wants me to see. The front of her body is pale and untouched, except for the scar. I couldn't leave unless I let them cut me, she says, tracing the red welt of healed skin on her lower belly, nipples and pink skin prickling in the chill. There wasn't nothing there to take, but they did it anyway. I see, I hear, but I don't understand. I just want to touch her, hold her, comfort her, but I know she'd startle like the hare. I know she's not one for touching. Her smile has slipped off all the way now, nothing's left of it. And without another word, she turns and walks down the slope towards the forest, leaving me, leaving her dress and her sweater on the fence, flower crown still askew, long strides cleaving the tall grass. The hare sits up as she approaches, flicking his ears, listening and waiting. For a moment, they remain completely still within each other's gaze. Then they start running together until the forest hides them both. 1940. I'm 8 years old the first time I understand that Brit's father beats her, and that's why Mother lets her come to stay with us. Those are the days there are empty bottles smashed outside Brit's house, when we can hear him bellowing her name through thin walls and rattling windows. Brit shares my narrow bed those nights, and we sleep skavfötters, our heads at either end, legs meeting in the middle. She eats dinner with us too, hands fluttering over the bread and butter, fingers clumsy when she wields a spoon or fork. Mother always lets her have seconds, even though she'll never let me eat my fill at the table until everyone else has finished. He's not my dad, Britt tells me when we sit together in the hayloft listening to the horses chewing oats below. My real dad lives in the river. Mama said so before she went away. But Britt can't even read, and everyone knows her mom was a whore, so I don't believe it until she takes me to the river. We look and look from the bridge, in the reeds and beneath the lily pads, and finally we find him. He looks dead, but Britt says he isn't. She pokes him with an oar, and he rolls over and floats up, wrapped in trailing lily stems, some of them wound around his head and long hair like a crown, and he's naked. The only thing missing is his fiddle, which Grandma says he ought to have. He looks so beautiful. I might have gone into the water myself, even if I cannot swim. Pale skin pulled tight over bones and dreams, dark hair like Britt's, all curls and waves and ripples. When Britt wades into the water, he opens his eyes and pulls her down. I want to scream and run away, but she's told me to wait, so I just stand there on the shore. Half a day goes by before she surfaces, all soaked and dripping, mud blossoming beneath her in the water. Afterwards, I know it can't have happened that way, that she can't have stayed under that long, that I must have made it up or imagined it. And yet I remember it clearly. The smell of the water as he broke the surface, mulch and rotten roots, the sheen of his skin as he reached for her, the hiss of his breath as he went below again. I didn't want to stay. I don't like it down there anyway. And he was mad at me for not bringing his fiddle, Britt says. I told him I might bring it if he'd give me something for it. Like what? I ask, but she won't say what magic she would ask for. Don't tell anyone, she whispers, when I help her pick the twigs and leaves out of her wet hair. And I promise. 1937. We are 5 years old when Britt shows me the fiddle packed away in a black case lined with red velvet underneath her bed. The veined wood is smooth and lustrous, like honeycombs and sunshine and autumn leaves. She plucks the strings with soft fingers, and the sound is water dripping from trees, is shade beneath heavy branches, is the rills of meltwater beneath thin ice in spring. Mama says it's mine. I touch, almost fearful of the smoothness of that varnish, the brittleness of that wood, the trembling power trapped within those strings and tuning screws. The fiddle is a treasure beyond price, in a place where there is mostly want. It is beauty in a place where there are only plain and practical things. It is magic tucked beneath a lumpy mattress. 1946. I'm 14 when they take Britt away. Mother says it's because Britt's not right. That's why the school wouldn't have her, because she couldn't sit still, couldn't listen, didn't write the words down as they were supposed to be written, didn't sing the psalms right, or read the sentences the way they were supposed to be read. She'd read other stories on the pages full of snakes and claws and ripping beasts and naked men and their genitalia, as I heard the teacher whisper behind her hand to my mother. No more school for her after that, just work. Be good, be grateful, bow and scrape. A car comes and takes her away one day when I'm at school. An institution, Grandma says, and I can tell she's almost crying. That's where they're taking her. I march down to the river looking for Britt's dad. It's a stupid thing to do, but I do it because I have nowhere else to be angry. After a bit of searching, I think I find the spot where Britt and I saw him before, but no one's there. I sit down in the grass on the sloping riverbank and tell him that no matter what Britt's mom did to him, no matter what she stole or what promises she broke. He can't punish Brit for it. Help her, I pray, hands clasped as if it's Sunday. Please. I know I should be praying to God or Jesus, but they're far away in the church above the clouds, pressed flat and dry between the pages of Grandma's heavy Bible. Not as close as the river, not as close as the water lapping over mud and rocks and toes. Something almost surfaces in the stream beyond, ripples radiating out. Most likely it's a fish catching a fly or water strider. But I make myself believe that he heard me. Then I throw a rock, as big as I can heft, out there just for good measure, hoping it'll crack his head open. I know what everyone says, that Brit's father was a no-good vagrant, a traveler passing through the village when Brit's mom was 16, that he ran off because he got into a fight and cut a man, that he was afraid of going to jail, that he left his fiddle behind and never came back. I know that no one else has seen the face beneath the water lilies. I know what people say, but I know it's not the truth. It's only the gossamer of reality pulled over the true story beneath, the story Brit told me, the story I am telling you. 1947. When Brit comes back, she tries to tell me of that place. A house, she says, with beds and clean sheets and metal tables and sharp knives laid out on trays. The words she has brought with her skip and sink, feeble-minded, teeter and totter, mental deficiency due to inheritance, break and crack, delinquent. And when I don't understand, she gets angry and runs away. A girl like her, she doesn't need the trouble, Mom says, while her fingers are busy knitting socks. She'll have an easier time of it now. I don't know what that means, but I know it's a lie. 1990. I'm 58 years old, career, no kids, happy on the weekends, busy folding laundry when a documentary on the radio tells me what happened to Brit. A kitchen towel, Sweden's State Institute of Racial Biology, t-shirt and sweatpants, racial hygiene, 3 pairs of socks, forced sterilizations, a pair of jeans, 63,000 individuals, 2 pairs of underwear, to raise the quality of the population stock and prevent degeneration of the race. I sit beside my pink geraniums and I can't stop crying. There is no Hare's gaze to hold me here, no music playing, no stolen fiddle's magic to stir me, but I can feel the shiver of the Hare's breath against my skin, and I can hear the melody anyway. I've dreamed of it every night since 1947. I know that the world is hollow, an awful place of despair and cruelty and injustice, and I know that the world is holy, a beautiful place of joy and radiance and moments braided together like flowers. Our love mostly hidden in the quiet spaces between everything we say and do to each other. 1947. The last time I see Brit is after midnight that Midsummer's Eve. She comes to Logen, the place where everyone is dancing and drinking beneath the maypole. The sky is fading into deeper blue, but the light remains, sheer like worn-out linen. Brit is still naked, scars and bruises bared, feet and shins covered in dirt and blood, mosquito bites and scratches, as if she's been running through the woods to get here. The only thing she's carrying is the fiddle and the bow, and everything she is and was and ever will be from this moment on is revealed before us, dirty and transcendent, broken and divine. Dance and music end. Brit takes out the bow, tightens the horsehair and sweeps it over the strings, fiddle tucked up on her shoulder. No one tries to stop her. No one speaks or moves. I've never seen her play before, But the sound she makes is fog rising off the water, is the darkness beneath the bridge, is the shade and gloom below the surface, is the smooth gleam of rocks at the bottom of the river, is the slow glide and swirl of the water's current in the heat of summer. Her hands, those hands that won't do anything right, that can't wield pencils or knitting needles, those hands our teacher smacked with a metal ruler so many times Brit's knuckles bled and puffed. Those hands braid notes together that shiver through our souls and unspoken dreams, through the skies and heavens. It's a spell, rippling and quavering, reflecting ourselves and the darkness knit into the light within us all. And for a little while, we might have followed her anywhere, might have listened to anything she said or played, might have understood her, but it's not for keeps. When the music stops, she's Brit again, the whore's daughter. She walks by me, past me, through me, away, holding on to that fiddle, and she smiles, still crowned by flowers, haloed, radiant. Her hand caresses me, and my cheek burns at the touch, though I'm not sure whether the heat is hers, or mine, or ours. Don't tell them where I went, she says, and I nod. I've kept that promise ever since. It's the only vow I've never broken. Then she runs, long legs moving through the tall grass, taking her back into the woods. The next day, I found Brit's wilted crown hanging off the edge of the bridge, its braided stems still unbroken. No one ever found her body. Some said she was trapped below the river's surface, snagged on roots or rocks. I knew it wasn't so. I knew Brit would have never stayed beneath. It wasn't her fault, none of it. No one should have beaten her. No one should have bruised or scarred her. No one should have cut her to make her fit. Some people can't ever make themselves fit into small rooms, into narrow and cramped words, can't make what they need to say fit into sentences and books and lined paper. But still, people try. They try to cut others into pieces, bend and twist them as to fit into the space provided. Why must everyone fit into church and school and work and polished shoes and small rooms and wooden coffins in the end to sink into the dirt? I watched the men in boats dredging the river searching for her, and I thought of the man beneath the mud and water lilies, thought of his fiddle and what tune he might make it play. All the while, I kept my eyes on the dark fringed pine and spruce on the other side of the bridge, waiting for the hare to see me. I go back to the old place at midsummer every year. The slope is overgrown with grass and nettles and slender birch trees. There is no potato patch anymore. The old house is warped and sagging, and no music comes from the river because the water is choked with weeds and silt. But a hare still visits. She knows me, and I know her. Gray-brown fur, all sleek and trim, long ears turning, eyes ever watchful. I've seen her with her leverets. Every midsummer's eve, she brings another two. Running with her in the meadow down towards the river, through the long translucent dusk, slipping into dawn. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Maria.
Yeah, that was lovely.
Beautiful story. I don't know much about the history or traditions of Midsummer's Eve, but hearing these two stories, I started thinking about how we're right in the middle of the year, right in that in-between time. It's like almost like a whole day of twilight that way. And it gives us time to look back at the world and love it for what's beautiful about it. And to just really live in it for one day as we look ahead to the rest of the year and trying to make the world better. So that's just me. Loving your stories. Thank you so much for both of them. And next week will be somewhere completely different. Well, emotionally. We'll have Jose Pablo Iriarte and Sam Rebeline. I can say your name, Sam, honestly, reading. And I do recommend checking storyhour2020.com to see any last minute changes and see about upcoming authors as well. If you should happen to miss a story hour that you really wanted to see, or maybe you're like Steve and don't stay up until 4 or 5 in the morning, every Wednesday for you, but Thursday for you, actually, Steve, you can always watch them again on Facebook at the Story Hour page. Steve, Maria, thank you so much for reading us your stories and making this such a special hour for us.
Thank you for having us on again.
It has been our honor. And thank you, Daniel Marcus, without whom Story Hour would not exist this Wednesday or any Wednesday. And all of you who are watching now, who are watching sometime in the future, thank you for joining us to spin the fictive dream together. Good night from Story Hour.